The Democratic National Convention erupted into 3 days of violence in August, both in the streets of Chicago and on the convention floor. In fact, a delegate from Colorado was among the first to inform the convention floor that riots were going on outside. Meanwhile, the Chicago Eight, a group of anarchists, will face charges of conspiracy to cross state lines with intent to incite a riot. The activists are not the only ones to come under scrutiny over the events in Chicago. Mayor Richard Daley and his police force have drawn scorn from people across the nation in its reaction to the protesters.
Colorado.
Mr. Chairman, Colorado rises to a point of information. Is there any rule under which Mayor Daley can be compelled to suspend the police state terror perpetrated this minute on kids in front of the Conrad Hilton?
Al, we'll start with you on this one. Do we have anything to fear in Denver of a police reaction like we saw in Chicago this year?
No, I really don't think so. I mean, I think we have a pretty good police force, Miss New York City. I'll tell you what, we've kept things calm here, and in fact, I would invite some of them Chicago 7 people to come and live here for a while and see how much better it could be, right, after their trial. But as far as the convention, I am shocked. I'm shocked at the scene, the display. It was terrible. I can't believe that they didn't bust more heads, to tell you the truth, because those people in the street were absolutely disgraceful. I think Mayor Daley did what he had to do to keep the streets safe and to keep the convention goers safe.
Florence, did what happened in Chicago during the convention put a damper? How did it affect other activism that you've seen throughout the country?
It's only rising, and you have to hold on there, Mr. Terry, because you're about to incite a riot right here. I heard you refer to the Chicago Eight as anarchists. Dellinger ain't an anarchist. Tom Hayden ain't an anarchist. Bobby Seale ain't an anarchist. I can't say much about those yippies. But the others, they're not anarchists. They are challenging the military-industrial complex, the corporate structure. That's revolution. That's not anarchy. So I just have to back down on my New York ways. And what was your other question?
The impact on community activists throughout the country.
Calm down.
What was your other question?
The impact of community activists throughout the country. Since you're traveling from New York and obviously have strong opinions, what happened in Chicago this year? How did it affect other activists throughout the country?
Oh, Mr. Terry, this is not going to stop. This is not going to stop. From DU to CU to Columbia to Berkeley to Harvard. This activism on our college campuses and the activism in the streets is not going to stop. And folks are just going to steel their backs. We had a display, Mayor Daley, who's also known as Mayor Thug, a display of horrendous governmental abuse and power. And it's not going to stop. And if Denver doesn't wake up, you know what's going to happen here. We're going to be a mile high.
Indeed. Molly, from what we've seen in the months since, what do you think now that we've seen it in a few months later, was what we saw in Chicago more about outsiders inciting a riot, or was it more about the reaction from the police?
Well, I happened to be staying with a very lovely family in Glencoe, Illinois for a few days during those riots, and I can tell you it is exactly Mayor Daley's Chicago that put the boot down on protesters. Yes, some of them acted out, but there is a reason these young people are protesting. They are being drafted to go to a war that makes no sense. They want to be heard on it, and the behavior of Mayor Daley's Chicago was exactly in line with the city that stole the 1960 presidential election. It was appalling, and let us hope Denver never goes in that direction.
Gerald, what do you think ensures that riots like this won't happen here in Denver?
Well, a better police force than the one that's run by Mayor Daley. And some people have, I think, accurately characterized what they did as a police riot. And of course, we need the police to enforce the law, but the police have to be lawful when they're doing it themselves. But there's no doubt that the communists and the yippies and whatever else you want to call those people who went to Chicago went there with the intent to incite a riot.
That's right.
And they were going to start a riot no matter what the police did. And their plan was to ruin the Democratic National Convention, which they succeeded at, and help elect Nixon, because they follow the communist, Leninist theory of the worse the better, so they think that by helping get Nixon into power, they're going to get their revolution sooner. I think what they're actually going to cause is a severe law and order crackdown that's going to violate a lot of civil rights.
We have some footage and a reaction for President-elect Richard M. Nixon.
It is time for an honest look at the problem of order in the United States. Dissent is a necessary ingredient of change, but in a system that provides for peaceful change, there is no cause that justifies resorting to violence. Let us recognize that the first civil right of every American is to be free from domestic violence. So I pledge to you, we shall have order in the United States.